Let's talk about sex, baby! Oh, sorry, I meant let's talk about the way society sexualizes women of color by framing them as exotic and why that is overall a bad thing. Sexy. We've all heard of women of color with striking features, whether it's their hair, bodies, eye shape, or skin tone, described as exotic. But what does it really mean? Well, exotic means introduced from another country, or strikingly, excitingly, or mysteriously different or unusual. And if you're using the term scientifically, great. Plants can be exotic. Birds can be exotic. The lamp that my husband decided is out of our budget is exotic. But there's one time you should probably hold off on using the word, when you're describing people. That's just a little pro tip from a lady who's been called exotic by some really well-meaning people a few times more than she would like. My preference would be 0. So here are 3 reasons why being called exotic isn't really a compliment. Number 1, exotic literally means foreign. Exotic comes from the Latin exoticus, which meant belonging to another country. And a lot of times that's just wrong. I mean, I've been called exotic right here in the United States, and I grew up in Florida, which to be fair, Florida is a very different place, but it's not a different country. In reality, exotic is kind of a way of saying, you don't look like you're from around these parts. And when you say it, you're really saying you're different. Which brings me to number 2, exotic is based on white beauty standards. The second part of the definition of exotic is strikingly, excitingly, or mysteriously different or unusual. Whether it's the way people talk about Asian women's almond eyes, the fetishization of black women's butts, or the fascination with racial ambiguity of mixed race women, the features which get people labeled as exotic are almost always in comparison to white ones. Her chocolatey complexion, her rich caramel lips, the rich olive color of her almond-shaped eyes. You ever notice how descriptions of women of color sometimes sound like they belong in a book of recipes? The common thread here is that women of color from various racial backgrounds are often considered exotic because they don't fit into what our culture sees as traditional beauty standards, white and European. And if you don't think that's true, have you ever heard anyone call Blake Lively or Taylor Swift exotic? Me neither. But even though we think of having blonde hair and blue eyes as some sort of all-American look, only 17% of Americans have blue eyes, and only 5% are natural blondes. So that combo is actually very exotic. Number 3, being fetishized is not a compliment. And while many people believe saying things like, I have yellow fever because Asian girls are so hot, or that indigenous women are all sexy Native American Disney princess Halloween costumes, or Latinas are just so sensual, or I love black girls because they have more booty, are compliments, even positive stereotypes are a form of fetishization because they reduce an entire group of women to one thing and ignore their nuance and individuality. And let me be clear, yes, white women, like all groups of women, are fetishized, objectified, and sexualized in problematic ways. But when you exotify and fetishize women of color for things like skin tone, hair texture, eye shape, or our bodies, you're objectifying us in ways that are especially gross because it often plays on perceived racial stereotypes that exist to oppress us in so many other ways. Like the fact that Native American women are the victims of rape and sexual assault at a rate that is 3.5 times higher than that of any race in the United States, with 70% of the perpetrators being non-native. Or that 77% of Latinas experience sexual harassment in the workplace. Or that 77% of the victims that reported alleged sexual trafficking were people of color. Or that not all black women have booties, no matter how many squats they do. Yeah, it's all very messed up. And people across all racial backgrounds contribute to perpetuating these stereotypes and attitudes, both within their own communities and towards women outside of their communities. There's nothing wrong with our differences, they're part of who we are. But for many women of color, we're constantly being shamed for being different and told we don't belong. So even if "you're so exotic" is meant as a compliment, it can be hurtful because it's just another way of keeping us feeling like we're on the outside. And while not using the word exotic won't solve any of society's bigger problems, being more mindful of the way we speak to each other is the first step in making sure everyone feels like they belong. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time right here on Decoded.